Hello and welcome back to Hoopsa. The third international break of the season is now done and dusted, meaning league football now runs mostly without interruption, with the exception of the Carabao and FA Cups, until World Cup qualifying begins on the 23rd of March 2025. That means QPR now have an unbroken run of 11 championship matches to get themselves together ahead of our annual FA Cup third round departure, starting with a visit from 13th place Stoke City on Saturday afternoon. Most of the time I'm joined by a guest for these previews. This time it's just me, but as usual I'll be chatting you through the Potters season so far, their players to watch out for, as well as a few words on the beloved mess that is Queen's Park Rangers at the end. So if you enjoyed this preview, don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, or do hit follow and give me a rating if you're listening in podcast form. Before we get into it though, I also wanted to just let you know that I'm currently on holiday in LA at the time this one goes out, meaning I won't be at the Stoke, Cardiff or Watford matches in person. I'll still be attempting to put out QPR content for these games while I'm away, but it'll probably mean they're temporarily in a bit of a different format, with match reactions and previews most likely melded into one for a couple of games. Anyway, that's the caveat out of the way, so let's get into it. Stoke's season started with a 1-0 win at home to Coventry, but after 3 losses to Watford, West Brom and Oxford United, manager Steven Schumacher became the second championship manager of the season to get the boot after just 5 league matches. Schumacher had only been in post for 9 months after coming in as Alex Neil's successor in December last year, and having successfully kept the Potters away from the relegation zone ahead of a significant summer rebuild of 10 players in and 14 out, it came as a shock to the Stoke City faithful, especially on the back of a 40.63% win rate and a trio of wins to end last season. Speaking of the decision, sporting director John Walters said, "My role as sporting director is to make tough decisions that serve the long-term interests of Stoke City. After ongoing discussions with John Coates, we feel the time is right for a change in direction to bring success to this club." Ultimately, it seems to me Walters wanted his own man in the dugout, having been appointed permanent sporting director back in April after a 2-month stint as interim technical director and 4 months on from Schumacher having got the job. Adding further fuel to that theory is the fact that Stoke's new manager Narcís Pelak was announced just 2 days after Schumacher's sacking, having clearly been sounded out over the first international break. 36-year-old Pelak joined Stoke, having most recently been a first-team coach at Norwich City, taking head of goalkeeping Paul Clements and performance analyst Harrison Glue with him, and prior to that he'd been on the coaching staff at Huddersfield under both Carlos Corberán and Mark Fotheringham. Life at his new club didn't start ideally with back-to-back losses to Hull City and Borough, but Stoke have lost just 1 of their 8 matches since then, with 3 wins and 4 draws. The most eye-catching result, of course, was Pelak's first win, a 6-1 home rout against Portsmouth, which of course did little to scar Pompey on the road, with them picking up a first win of the season at Loftus Road in their very next away match. Ignoring the irony that they were 13th when Schumacher was sacked and remained 13th 10 games later, as I say, Stoke have been solid over the last 8 and headed into the international break unbeaten in 3, with back-to-back wins against Derby and Blackburn Rovers, followed by a 1-1 draw with Millwall. Formation-wise, Pelak has set up on occasion with a 4-2-3-1, much like Rangers, and once or twice with a back 5, but unusually for a Catalan, his favoured formation so far appears to have been a 4-4-2, initially with Sam Gallagher acting as a foil for Leicester City loanee and current top scorer Thomas Cannon, who currently sits on a total of 6 from 11. That was of course until Gallagher got injured after just 3 appearances for Stoke, though he is looking likely to be back in action against Rangers this weekend. In his absence, Lewis Kumas has been utilised alongside Cannon to less effectiveness, but wingers Baijono and Manif have provided threat out wide, with Baijono on 5 assists from 14. Elsewhere in the team, midfielder Berger, the sole scorer in our last meeting at their place back in February, misses out on this one, having picked up his 5th yellow of the season against Millwall, while goalkeeper Victor Johansson, previously a pain in QPR's side at Rotherham, has averaged the 2nd highest number of saves per match this season. Now from QPR's perspective, we must say 2 prayers. The first is, for the 3rd time this season, that the international break will help this team miraculously turn the corner. This of course didn't work the first 2 times, with the first break actually inconveniently disrupting an unbeaten run of 3 after our first and only win of the season away at Luton, and the second break being followed by our worst run of form this season so far. The second prayer of course is that some of our many first team injuries come out to play again, though this in itself is a flawed logic given we weren't exactly pulling up trees with any of them in the team. The trouble is, given the club's secretive policy policy around injuries, we quite literally have no idea which of Clark, Salter, Dembele, Powell, Fox, Colback, Chair, or Frey are nearing return, with West London Sport reporting earlier this month that Cifuentes doesn't know when our only forward will be available. So it makes it impossible really to theorise about how Marty might decide to change things up after this break. He has at the very least managed to keep hold of his job after a bizarre rumour from Le Equipe last week that Gregory Vignal was in the frame to replace him, though for how long if he isn't able to produce at least a win against any of Stoke, Cardiff, Watford or Norwich is anyone's guess. Weirdly, and I know we only have one fit striker, but I'd actually like to see us match Stoke with a 4-4-2, with Lloyd pairing up with Sella if Frey still isn't available. I just think it would get much more out of Sella, who we're stuck with in this run until January. We've played the least through balls in the league, so I think we need someone else up top to create a bit of hassle. And I think 4 in midfield would help us to pad us out a bit more. Just 360 days apart, this same fixture last season provided Cifuentes with his first QPR win and Rangers' first at home since March 2023. So who knows, maybe the stars will align once again and Stoke will give him a first home win this season. You can probably tell at this point that I am very much clutching at straws. Anyway, let's round off things with a score prediction. I think QPR will be able to tighten things up if they get a couple of those injuries back for this one, but I just can't see where the goals are going to come from. We scored 3 goals in 6 games in the last batch before the international break, and I just can't see that being rectified unless we do go for something like 4-4-2. So I'm going to go for a 1-0 Stoke win. Let me know your own score predictions in the comments on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, etc. And if you don't already follow me, please do hit like, subscribe, follow on those various platforms if you haven't done already. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you in the next one. Come on, you Urs.